in order to demand drop the charges against the Bay Bridge 78. As we know, San Francisco and DA Jenkins in particular in this moment is making history in one of the worst ways possible. She intends to charge 78 protesters with 5 hefty charges for civil disobedience that has a long history here in the Bay Area. We know that these charges are an aberration, not just to the status quo, but also to this moment when we are standing against genocide. What does that mean when you are charging 78 people who took a stand against genocide? Does that mean that you're for it?
That ain't right. Genocide.
That ain't right. One of the charges in particular is false imprisonment. And these are serious charges, y'all, because what that would incur is 6 months to a year in prison for each arrestee. We know that DA Jenkins is standing on the wrong side of history. And we also know that the city and the county that she serves overwhelmingly supports the demands of the Bay Bridge 78. When the people in power do not listen to those who put them there, we have to take a different approach. And that has been a consensus across the country. You can see it in Portland, we saw it in New York, we saw it in Montreal. We've seen a consensus around the country. And these are separate actions, y'all. This is not coordinated. But the thing that is the same is that this is 103 days of genocide, and the people in power are not listening to the people in the streets. So rest assured that we are not going anywhere. We will keep the demand to drop the charges, and we will keep and uplift the central demands that the action uplifted in the first place 40 days into this genocide, which is a ceasefire now, an end to U.S. complicity in Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. And we want to see some moves, some action, because genocide is not a metaphor. We don't want representatives who talk about the civil rights movement as if they did something about it. But when the moment arises at present, say, you know what, that's a little bit complicated for me. Yes. Life and death are not complicated. 1 in 20 people in Gaza are either dead, injured, or missing. 1 in 20. Israel, as of today, has killed 1% of the Palestinian population of the Gaza Strip. We know where we stand. DA Jenkins, where do you stand? Yes. We'll see about it in November for sure. The first person I'd like to bring up today is Ahmed Abu Zanad from the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Please give him a warm welcome.
What's up, everyone? I'm representing the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, and I'm really honored to be here with you today. I think over the last 100+ days, the times that I've felt the best have been when I've been immersed in community. And you all have been building power for decades, not just the last 100 days, and this is what we're seeing here today. We're here to support the Bay Bridge 78, but we're here to support the movement to demand a ceasefire. Not just that, we want an end to the siege, an end to the occupation, and no more dollars to support Israeli genocide of Palestinians. I applaud you for continuing to put your bodies on the line to devote your spirit, your energy into this movement. We are a part of the largest mass mobilization and mass movement of this generation. Stand proud, stand tall, and believe in your power. So, Frederick Douglass had a quote that I wanted to share with you all, and he said that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. You all are in the midst of the struggle, a people struggle for people's power, so be proud of that. One other point that Frederick Douglass made in this speech was that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. So here we are demanding a ceasefire. Here we are demanding dropping the charges, demanding an end to the siege, demanding an end to the occupation. Free, free Palestine! Before I leave you and make space for other speakers, I thought we could utilize a chant that we used to use at the Dream Defenders in Florida. Shout out to the Dream Defenders and all our family out here. Repeat after me, please. Power! Need a little more, because they got to hear us. Power! Power! Transformation! Transformation! And miracles! And miracles! I want it! I want it! I need it! I need it! I got to have it! I got to have it! Right now! Right now! Right now! Right now! Power! Power! Transformation! Transformation! And miracles! And miracles! I want it! I want it! I need it! I need it! I got to have it! I got to have it! Right now! Right now! Right now! Right now! Right now!
And we have love from all over the United States, but we have a lot of love from the city of San Francisco. So I want to highlight some of those organizations that have signed on to drop the charges and show the overwhelming consensus that these charges are trumped up. Yes, they are. Those in support of dropping the charges: California Coalition for Women Prisoners, Causa Justa, Center for Political Education, People Organized to Demand Environmental and Economic Power, the Trabajadores Unidos Workers United, Westside Tenants Association, the Center for Third World Organizing, Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. Yeah, we have a lot. Presente.org, Movement Generation. We got the Urban Peace Movement. We have a lot of folks. Up next, we're gonna bring up District 5 Supervisor Dean Preston. Please give him a warm hand.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Dean Preston, Supervisor for District 5, and I am here in solidarity today and to thank the Bay Bridge 78 for putting themselves on the line, to call attention to the humanitarian disaster in Gaza, which has only gotten worse as the weeks and months have gone by. I want to thank you for your courage in the face of a political establishment that has used every tool at its disposal and then some to silence our voices and diminish the mass movement that speakers before me have spoken about. The mass movement of San Franciscans, of Bay Area residents, a diverse coalition of Palestinians, Jews, people of conscience, from all across the political spectrum and all across the world, who have stood up against the ongoing killing, displacement, and outrageous assault on Palestinians in Gaza. Now, last week, with the help of many of you, and thank you to all of you who came down to the Board of Supervisors, a major voice is heard. Last week, the Board of Supervisors passed our resolution with a supermajority vote of the board calling for a ceasefire, release of all hostages, and humanitarian aid in Gaza. Now, after we passed that resolution and before, we heard from so many people calling, writing, stopping us in the streets to thank us for standing with them, and they shared their loss, their grief, their trauma, their anxieties, and thanked us for doing the most basic thing, which was to pass a resolution here in the city and county of San Francisco that should never have been controversial in the first place, to call for a ceasefire. How did we reach a point where calling for a ceasefire is controversial? I'm comforted by the fact and inspired by the fact that I know that a vast majority of people in the city and county of San Francisco agree with us. They agree with this call for a ceasefire. They agree that calling for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid and releasing hostages is not a controversial act. It's the decent and moral thing to do. But unfortunately, for pro-war political careerists, it is not enough to diminish and ignore the pleas from thousands of our constituents who are experiencing the grief and the anxiety and the loss that I just mentioned. Folks who are seeing every day, hearing from relatives, seeing on the news, reading, seeing videos of dead families, mothers, children, doctors, journalists being killed by the IDF, likely with U.S. weapons, and with unconditional backing and green light from our federal government. So there is a movement to silence and to punish every person who speaks out, regardless of whether they are an elected official or a everyday resident who speaks out in their workplace, in social gatherings, or on the streets. Anyone who doesn't want their tax dollars used for the destruction of Gaza. And what does the prosecution of peaceful protesters do? Who does that help?
No one.
What does that accomplish?
Nothing.
The prosecution of nonviolent protesters does not make us any safer, that's for sure. It didn't work when they tried to prosecute Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it won't work now. Now, DA Jenkins has an opportunity here to be on the right side of justice, the right side of history, by dropping these heavy-handed and clearly politically motivated charges. And we will keep pressuring her to do exactly that, and I know you will be there to do that every day and in every way possible. But whatever happens, I know this. We are only one voice in a chorus of tens of thousands of San Franciscans who have been vocally opposed to this war. And we have seen that every time people take to the streets in support of Palestinian people, we have seen the numbers grow and the attempt to silence everyone grow. And the more they attempt to silence us, the more we will speak out and the more our numbers will grow. We are only one voice in a chorus, not just of San Francisco, but of dozens of local governments all across this country who, despite the political pressures, are speaking out in support of ceasefire. And we are only one voice, but in a chorus of a global movement, including people like the Pope, including nations like France and South Africa, Ireland, and others, including the UN, calling for an end to these atrocities and ceasefire now and peace. And that chorus will keep getting louder. We are not going away until there is peace and justice in Gaza. Thank you for playing your part in making sure that happens. It's an honor to stand with you.
Thank you, Supervisor Preston, for coming to speak and to share that. Y'all know this, but he was the co-sponsor of the recently passed ceasefire resolution of the Board of Supervisors, representing Fillmore in the Western Addition. Next up, we're gonna have Kristin Hardy, who's the VP of SF 1021. She's the SEIU member leader, the VP. Give her a round.
Hey, good afternoon, San Francisco. Thanks for inviting us. My name is Kristin Hardy. I am the current San Francisco Regional Vice President for 10 to 1. This is our home here too. We're actually neighbors with the DA, so thanks for asking us to speak. I am out here, just want to encourage everyone with the conscience to stand against the continued killing that has been going on in Gaza. As me being a San Francisco native and resident, you know, I am very encouraged seeing that San Francisco has played its part. I want to put a shout out thanks to one of our soups, Dean Preston, who is a super ally of us in labor. 10 to 1 is proud to have called for a ceasefire. We passed a resolution. Not because it's the thing or the fad that's going on, but because it's the right thing to do. Anybody with a conscience needs to be standing out here and supporting this movement. It's not just Israel or a Gaza thing. This is a us thing. It's affecting everybody. It's coming to everybody's community. Everybody should be out here having some sort of voice. We fight for the rights of the oppressed, and we stand here in solidarity of everybody and all the victims out there and the families. And 1021 is asking for all the progressives, the ones that's behind here, my neighbors in the building, the advocates, the allies, the community members, the activists, to make their voices heard, beginning with the members of labor and all the communities in San Francisco. So let's go, let's continue this fight. As long as they're killing, we're gonna keep on speaking. And I just want to invite everybody out right now. San Francisco public sector workers are in for the fight of their life. We just want a PERB decision. This is our first year in over 40 years to have the right to strike. If we don't get a fair contract for holding this city down during the damn pandemic, we're going to be out there striking, and we're asking for support of the community. The allies will be in front of City Hall at 12 noon for our rally, for our kickoff. Please come down, show your support and solidarity, and keep it going, you guys.
We will absolutely be in the street supporting our workers. We want to bring up Naima for a cultural performance. We know that as we stand here and demand to drop the charges, we are also in concurrence with a genocide happening in Gaza. 40 days into the genocide is when the Bay Bridge action occurred. And at that time, there were 11,000 people who had been murdered. Today, it is triple. Over 30,000 people have been murdered. And the conditions are the same. Last night, did y'all watch as the Israeli military bombed Nasser Hospital? The last functioning hospital in the entire Gaza Strip? Culture, different ways of telling this story, of documenting it and resisting it, transcends borders. We want to bring up Naima and honor also the Arab and Palestinian community here who are mourning our people, who are mourning as people who look like us, who could be us, who are related to us, are getting slaughtered because of who they are. I'm going to bring up Naima and her transformative voice. Please give her a round of applause.
It is absurd to me that we have to stand here today and remind our legal system to actually be a system of justice. It is absurd to me that 78 people who blocked the bridge in protest because those in national positions are not listening to the global majority and the majority here on sacred indigenous land fighting for justice is actually threatened to be criminalized. But you know what? We stand on the shoulders of Black power leaders and movements. We stand on the shoulders of indigenous revolutions for hundreds and thousands of years, and we will continue to do that. I'm gonna sing one song in Arabic and one song in English. The one in English is by our ancestor and revolutionary leader, Sam Cooke. And the Arabic song is a song sung for political prisoners in Palestine. And that means all of Gaza and Palestine right now until it is free. عصفور طل من الشبك اللي يعنونه خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو قلت له انت من وين قال لي من حدود السماء قلت له جاي من وين قال لي من بيت الجيران قلت له خايف من مين قال لي من أرفس هربان قلت له ريشتك وين قال لي فرفت غزمان عصفور طل من الشباك قال لي يا نونو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like that river, we've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but we know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but we know change gonna come. Can you hear us, D.A. Jenkins? Oh, yes, we will. Then I go to see my brother. I said, brother, help me, please. But he just kept knocking me back down on my knees. There've been times that I thought I couldn't last, but now we're able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but we know, but we know, but we know, but we know, come on, y'all, but we know change gonna come. من المياه المياه هي هي فلسطين من المياه المياه هي هي فلسطين حرية حرية هي هي فلسطين حرية حرية هي هي فلسطين فلسطين عربية هي هي فلسطين. Free Palestine, everybody drop the charges, ceasefire, free Palestine.
Give it up for Naima, y'all. awake now. I don't know about y'all, but I am. We're here. D.A. Jenkins, are you there? Drop the charges! Drop the charges! Drop the charges! Drop the charges! Down, down with occupation! Down, down with occupation! Up, up with liberation! Up, up with liberation! Down, down with occupation! Down, down with occupation! Up, up with liberation! Up, up with liberation! We're gonna move to Rama Ali Qasid, who's gonna give us a little bit of a report back. Rama's a longtime organizer here in San Francisco. She was also one of the coordinators of the Arab Youth Organization. She saw many of us grow up here in this city. Please give her a warm welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rama Ali Qasid. I am a professor in the Department of Race and Resistance Studies in the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State. And I want to remind you all, I am here representing the Department of Race and Resistance, and I want to remind you all that the College of Ethnic Studies was brought about by the longest student strike in history here in San Francisco. Students shut it down. Faculty shut it down. Allies shut it down to demand an education that is relevant, to demand an education that reflects students of color, oppressed people across the globe, and demanded an education to learn the skills to resist racism, sexism, capitalism, and all forms of oppression. So I want us to remember where we are here in San Francisco, the home of the first College of Ethnic Studies. I am here standing alongside my colleagues who are part of the 78. I am here standing alongside my students who are part of the 78, standing alongside my alumni who are part of the 78, and we congratulate you for holding up the vision and the mission of the College of Ethnic Studies to stop oppression in all its forms, to resist oppression in all its forms, including Zionism. Drop the charges now. Drop the charges now. I and a few of us walked into the building today to demand to see D.A. Jenkins, to demand that she received a letter from the community that represents over 120 organizations, both here and nationally, that represents thousands and thousands of people who are demanding to be heard. D.A. Jenkins, we demand you to drop the charges now. Drop the charges now. The letter, they wouldn't let us upstairs. There is a whole bunch of staff people protecting the door and the elevator. They wouldn't let us in. They asked us to leave the letter in the lobby desk. We refused to do so. We asked for a staff person. A staff person came up to us. We handed the letter to them. Hey, staff person, we see you. We know you're standing there. We want to make sure D.A. Jenkins gets that letter. We want to make sure she hears us. And we want to make sure she drops the charges now. Thank you.
Next up, y'all, we have Alex Lalama from San Francisco Rising. Give it up for Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Lalama, and I'm with San Francisco Rising. For over 100 days, we have seen a genocide unfold in Palestine. Our access to viewing the mass displacements, ethnic cleansing, and violence onto the indigenous people of Gaza has made it so that we cannot look away. Over 30,000 Palestinians have died at the hands of U.S. funding. So the morning of November 16th, during the week of APEC, when our president, Joe Biden, was in this city, boo. Our community members had no choice but to shut down the Bay Bridge. Because we will not be complicit with our tax dollars to continue to funnel into the military state of Israel that occupies stolen land of Palestine. There is direct impact felt from the loss of families and children in Gaza. Dozens of Palestinians in San Francisco have lost their own family members. Some folks have lost up to 30 family members. We cannot keep separating this issue from what's important to the people in the city, which is exactly why the Board of Supervisors passed a ceasefire resolution last week. San Francisco is the largest city to pass a ceasefire resolution. The largest city. And yet we know this is the bare minimum. The bare minimum. What is felt in Gaza is felt here in the streets of San Francisco. The Bay Bridge 78 embodies the true values of San Francisco, a city built on resistance, organizing, and fighting for justice. San Francisco comes from a long legacy of direct action. Taking to the streets for May Day, protests against the wars in Vietnam and Iraq, the fight for ethnic studies, and the queer liberation, all of these movements have long shaped our history and our present. So what the Bay Bridge 78 did came out of necessity to be heard, not only locally, but nationally. The lack of inaction from this government has moved all of us to take bigger actions in our communities. And yet we know this movement is bigger than one action on the Bay Bridge. Not until there is a permanent ceasefire and an end to the occupation will there be peace in this city. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. DA Brooke Jenkins has nothing to prove with her narrative of being tough on crime. The criminalization of these 78 community members is a criminalization of the movement for free Palestine. Instead of focusing on reimagining on safety in our communities, closing down juvenile hall, or even bringing justice to the families of Keita O'Neill or Sean Moore, instead, what does she focus on? Bringing on these 78 cases under false accusations. Shame on Brooke Jenkins. This does nothing to support the San Franciscans. We do not feel safer under a police state. We do not feel safer using our resources to criminalize civil disobedience. And we definitely do not feel safer when we are facing a budget crisis that is already cutting our resources. DA Jenkins, drop the charges. DA Jenkins, drop the charges. The Bay Bridge 78 represents the thousands of community members who support a free Palestine. We cannot wait for the situation in Gaza to be any dire. Gaza Strip, the size of San Francisco and Daly City, have already lost so much. 1% of their population has been killed, so we cannot wait another month, not another week, and not another day. We will not stop calling, emailing, and organizing for the Bay Bridge 78. The same way we will not stop protesting, fighting, and marching for a free Palestine. We will not look away in San Francisco. Drop the charges and the occupation and Viva Palestina in our lifetime.
Cameras, many of them have left, so if you want to move in and get a little closer, you're welcome to, but you know. Up next, we're gonna have Tarek Eccentric Ghazale presenting some poetry. Give it up for Eccentric, please.
Hey, DA Jenkins, how you doing this morning? Drop the charges. You're wasting our money, by the way. And this is something I think a lot of people in San Francisco are sick of seeing, is our politicians, and this one, in this case being the top cop, as they call them, putting forth another extremely expensive, pointless case against these obviously just protesters. And yeah, shame, exactly. Give love to the 78. I feel like this is a recurrence of history, being from the Wheeler 79 back in 2002 or 2003, when we took over Wheeler Hall at UC Berkeley in support of boycott, divestment, and sanctions at UC Berkeley. I don't know if you remember that. Walter Riley was there representing us, and thankfully there was a resolution, and there was a bit of justice. But unfortunately, DA Jenkins wants to make a point, and I think we need to make a point as well that we will not stand for these frivolous cases against people standing up for human rights, standing up for justice, standing up for every single person in this crowd, every single person who's oppressed in the city and in the Bay Area and in the world globally. I have a poem I wrote recently. Gaza is on fire once again, and the arsonists are the same. Eyes of a dollar sign, tentacles of an offshore launderer. Schemes comes to light within themes of petrol beings, dancing a lifeless debka with fiends and white strings. And unattached are we, directly under their ordinance, ordained to behave within their orders, guzzle their juice and build walls and force sores on earth in the form of borders. Human lords lubricated with London Brent, bent on Arabian heavy, light as New York, short-souled in tort. Insanity aborts humanity. In greed we sport, hunt the weak until we feed upon our own. Chickens without talons, mammals of dark talents. Thank you.
Next up, we have Hejin from Survived and Punished, who's gonna remind us that political repression and trumped up charges will not stop us from taking action to do what is right. Give it up for Hejin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hejin, and I am here representing the Bay Bridge 78. I'm also here as a member of Survived and Punished, a national abolitionist collective that organizes for the freedom of domestic violence and rape survivors who are imprisoned for self-defense, locked up by those just like DA Jenkins. Here in San Francisco, I have worked as a longtime advocate for survivors. In 2013, I took my first rape crisis counselor training right here in the city, in the Mission, and spent the 7 years after that working in this city again as a victim advocate for immigrant and refugee survivors of gender-based violence. My co-defendants and I are honored to live in the legacy of San Francisco's struggles for justice. We were proud to see the city stand on the right side of history last week by passing a resolution for a ceasefire now. We situate ourselves in a proud history of fighting for social change. We are survivor advocates, social workers, artists, healthcare professionals, educators, activists, and more. We are not heroes, nor are we particularly exceptional among the millions of people right now amplifying Gaza's call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Rather, we are the everyday people in the SF Bay Area who do our part to keep our communities as healthy and as safe as we can. It should not come as a surprise that we, the ordinary people who care for our communities, would extend our solidarity to come together to protest one of the most grave injustices of our time. For over 100 days now, an apocalyptic genocide has been unfolding in Palestine with our tax dollars in our names. White phosphorus, bombs, missiles, everything you can imagine has been raining down on Gaza as Palestinians are maimed, starved, tortured, and killed. Every day, we go to sleep and wake up, and hundreds more die. We know that this is a generation-defining moment that will mark us collectively and individually forever. We know what the stakes are, so repression will not work to silence us. In November, we took to the Bay Bridge to shut it down when Genocide Joe was here. Like thousands in the Bay Area and millions all over the world, we did what we could to show that there can be no business as usual during a genocide. Now we are facing 5 trumped-up charges each, all 78 of us, because our act of civil disobedience embarrassed DA Jenkins and Mayor London Breed on the world stage. The dubious excuse they have for our criminalization is public safety. DA Jenkins prosecutes protesters and says it's for safety. She jails homeless people and says it's for safety. She shrinks the unit investigating police misconduct in this city and says it's for safety. She holds over 100 people in indefinite detention without trial right here in San Francisco, also in the name of safety. One of the first things that Brooke Jenkins did when she took office last year was to try to bypass San Francisco's critical sanctuary city laws under false pretenses, again in the name of safety. She criminalizes drug use, mental illness, and poverty while encouraging racial profiling of Black and brown people to ramp up her arrest and conviction rates. This, we are told, is also safety. We reject DA Jenkins' delusions of safety that turn San Francisco into a corporate playground for the wealthy, while she gives public speaking engagements about how she wants to make homeless people uncomfortable. How much more of our money will DA Jenkins waste while thousands of San Franciscans suffer under the daily crises of homelessness, poverty, and policing? Is that safety? At home, criminalization is the United States' blunt tool of injustice. DA Jenkins uses it now in a truly ill-advised attempt to silence our calls for an end to genocide. Fortunately, there is no social justice movement on this planet that answers to corrupt institutions like the District Attorney's Office. Rather, we answer to the Palestinian children, men, and women of Gaza who ask us, when will this genocide end? Our demands have always been for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, an end to U.S. military aid to Israel, and a Palestine liberated from occupation and colonization. Criminal charges or not, we will never be silenced until Palestine is free.